Before I start the video, there are spoilers of the packaging in this video. So if you don't wanna get spoiled, then watch these time slots on the screen here somewhere. And if you don't mind, then well, enjoy.
And we have another day, we have another update of the trial production, and today we're going to look at the 80HE being assembled, but now in the plastic case. Remember the mods from yesterday? Bada boom! They are here in the master carton on the pallets, and even here I have some 60HEs for you there waiting. Before we go into the assembly line, we're first going to take a look at that last step of the module, which is the shrink wrapping. So let's go take a look. So here we are at that last step for the module that we hadn't shown yesterday and that they're doing today, which is shrink wrapping the box. So here we have the boxes of the module. This goes onto the conveyor belt where it gets wrapped around with the plastic. But this is not just any regular plastic, this is biodegradable plastic shrink wrap. This is something that we're going to also implement to all our other keyboards and products, but this is the first time we're starting to use it right now, so we'll find out if it's going to be any good when you receive your 80. So once it has the plastic wrapped around, then here it will cut off the plastic, so you have basically a bag around the keyboard, but as you can see, it still has a lot of air inside. That's what the last step is for, is this one. By using heat, it starts to shrink the plastic and get the air out, shrink the plastic, and it will wrap around tightly on the box. Which finally, on this station, that final box with the shrink wrap comes out. He does a final inspection. You can see that this didn't come out too well, so he's going to put next to it. This is going to be redone. But this one came out perfectly fine, so it can go into the master carton, which then goes onto the pallet, and after having a full pallet, it's ready for that cross-ocean shipment. Let me help him out with it. Now let's take a look at the 80HE and how it's being assembled with the plastic case. We're at the 80HE assembly line. You can see that Kevin is very busy in the back there, checking on all little final details. There is Vanessa also in the back checking with some of the operators. This is all about double checking the assembly line, double checking maybe some things that we know about the product, and making sure the assembly goes completely smooth. So there's like a constant iteration of making the assembly line better and better and better. And this assembly line is the most important one because it's also the more complex one. Yesterday you saw the module being put together. It's relatively simple, but now we have the whole case being put together into a much more complex type of packaging. So let's go through that full assembly line and see how the 80HE is put together. And it all starts right over here. We have the bottom case of the 80HE, which comes out of the box, and then they put on the silicone stickers. Then we can go to the next step, where we can put on the EPDM foam into the bottom case. Then, what you might notice here is that we have the full module already assembled beforehand, and it doesn't get separately assembled in this assembly line. Because it's a completely different step, it's the same like yesterday, where they put the module together with the silicone pad, and they do the automatic screwing, but then before they put on the PET sticker, they separate it into a box, and that gets pre-assembled for this assembly line, where now they can just take it out and start using it. And the module already has a daughter board connected to it, but before we can put it into the case, we have an operator here putting on that PET film, just like the module we saw yesterday, onto the backside of the PCB. And then we can start now to screw in that daughter board into the bottom case first, and that's what this operator does over here. Flip everything around, screw in the daughter board, and then we get to the part where the top case is being prepared. It doesn't get installed straight away, because here we have a very cool machine. And if you remember from my other video, we saw the top case injection happening, and then I told you, well, the nuts are not in there yet. It happens at a later stage, unlike the switch plate where they already put it inside the mold. This is that stage where they put in the nut. So I have this automated machine that basically heats up the nut and then pushes it into the top case standoff, and then it melts in there because of the heat, and it adheses together. And it does that for every spot, and then we can do the next one and the next one. And that's fully automated. And if we don't have those nuts in there, we cannot screw the bottom case into the top case. Once that is done, the top case is also put together with all the other parts of the keyboard onto the assembly line. But we cannot put that top case onto the whole keyboard just yet, because we need the LED bar. And this operator takes LED bar, screws it in, and then puts the top plate onto the top of the keyboard, clicks it together, And then we can go into the next step. And you would think, hey, you know, time to screw it together. No, because before you screw it together, let's do a final check on the keyboard. Let's see if all the RGB lights are working, the function works, and that's what I have this station for. They check for the red light, green light, blue light, and they check all the key functions by checking all the keys. We already do this actually after the SMT process on the PCB side. It's just something that we don't film because we have some special jigs there. But here is another check to make sure it's working as it should. You can even see them abusing the keyboard a little bit. Don't worry, they do this because they need to check if any IC parts might be in there a little bit loose. So they want to make sure that if there's anything loose in there, maybe there's a screw, maybe there's an IC part, they can now make sure it's not in there. So if that is all okay, it can go into that next phase, which is the screwing in of the bottom case to the top case. And that is also fully automated. We have a machine here that screws it automatically from the bottom case into the top case. And that gives us a fully assembled keyboard. Now this happens to be the ISO keyboard. And on ISO keyboards, we don't install the keycaps. Otherwise, it would have been another step here for the keycap assembly, but that's not going to happen here because this is the ISO version of the keyboard. We don't deliver that with keycaps. Keycaps are separate, and we do that so that we can offer multiple languages without needing to have a whole bunch of SKU keyboard variations just to offer the ISO layout. So what happens next is before it can go into the box, it goes through another serial number check. And I say another because we already do this on the SMT side. We assign a serial number to the PCB, which it also gets a serial number sticker. Then we need to have that same serial number on the bottom case of the keyboard, and that serial number needs to also go onto the product box. And we do this to track every keyboard that we have so we can better backtrace problems that might happen with the keyboard, so we know from which production batch it was or which kind of components we used, so it's faster to find a problem. Here we can see already the assembled product box. This actually gets assembled already on the end of the station where they fold the box together. They place it here so they can put it together with the keyboard. It goes on top of the keyboard so that they can first put all the accessories inside the box. One of the first accessories is basically a paper warning you if you swap out the switch or you have to install it in a certain orientation. Especially with the ISO keyboard, the enter key is tricky because it's not the same as all the other keys. We decided to add that to all our keyboards now, just in case, so you don't make a mistake or damage anything on the keyboard. Then we can go into the actual 80HE accessories, where we have the feet, we have the puller, the switches, the extra screws, and the cable was already joining the whole area, but that cable can also now go into the box, into the accessories area. And then when we have all the accessories inside, we can actually put in the keyboard itself. We have our dust cover that goes over it. It goes into closing the box, and then it goes into a master carton. But that master carton is not closing yet because we still need to shrink wrap the product, then into the master carton, then close the master carton, then it's on the pallet, and then we can do the cross ocean fulfillment, and then we can go to the warehouse, and then we can start packing boxes, and then we can ship it to you, and I hope you enjoy. So, if you remember from the video just now, behind me, Kevin was talking to a bunch of people behind me, which was here. And that was for a very simple thing. It was for the accessory bags. So we have these biodegradable accessory bags where we have all the accessories inside, and the sealing area to close on the top was very close to the ripping area, which are perforated holes. And because it was so close to each other, it looked like one whole piece, so you didn't know that you could actually rip it apart. So after some discussion, we shifted that sealing area a bit more to the top area, so it's more clear there is a perforated area where you can rip it. And these are really small things you just can't notice when you're doing things from a distance, and you just notice it when you're on the line and helping out with these last little steps for the trial production. And that is why we're here. So we'll continue finding these kind of things, make these little details a little bit better, and then you get a better 80HE. So now we have the ANSI version being assembled, and those do have the keycaps. And here we can see that at the very start of the process, they already start to assemble the keycaps. It first has a tray of keycaps, how it comes from the manufacturer. That goes onto a jig by flipping it around on the assembly line to the next machine, and this is a very interesting one. This is basically a pressing machine where they can put the jig into the machine, and they can put the module on top, and it presses down the module into the keycaps, and then the keycaps are already assembled. And that saves a lot of time, a lot of labor, so it's a very important step I thought it would have been a little bit later in the assembly line, but it's already starting all the way at the beginning. Now, I better get back to work, otherwise there's no keyboards to be shipped. So I'll see you in the next video tomorrow. I gotta hurry up, they're waiting for me. What are you filming? Sammy, I'm working. Go away. I have stuff to do. Away with the camera. Done with the update. Update's over. Bye-bye.